Two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Hello.
Reckless speculation.
And welcome to
Reckless speculation.
a Reckless Speculation Thursday on Minnesota Sports with Mackie and Judd. He is our friend from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, Darren Doogie Wolfson. Darren, Judd and I just got done. Well, we did a SKOR North Twin Show, which you guys can find on the brand new SKOR North Twin Show YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button. Help us grow that thing. Thank you, guys. But also, Flagrant Howls is in full off-season mode right now. And by that, we mean like reckless speculation mode. And we discovered a really interesting Wolves trade theory. Would you like to start there today, Doogie? How does
Let's
that sound?
start there. Reckless Speculation Thursday. It is a fun month of reckless speculation. Will the Wolves exercise an option on Josh Minot by the end of the month? Yes, right? Okay. We have the draft, 13 days away? Well, 13 and 14 days away. It's now a two-day event. The Wolves have picks 27 and 37. They had more draft prospects in yesterday, including Cam Spencer of UConn, P.J. Hall of Clemson, Jamal Shedd, a point guard I like, although he doesn't really shoot the three, but I like him out of the University of Houston. I'm told he's due in the coming days for a workout. So the Wolves are bringing in all sorts of different prospects. Tristan Newton, who I really like out of UConn, was in recently. Cam Christie, I noted that last week. He was in over the weekend. So it's a fun time for Wolves speculation. Will they extend Rudy Gobert in July? I'm told, Phil, there is mutual interest on that front. So when thinking about the books a year out, that's one thing the Wolves could do. Rudy, don't exercise your player option. Let's rip that up. Let's extend you, and you can structure the contract to save some money short term, right? And, hey, Rudy would love to have some security, ages like 33, 34, perhaps even his age 35 season. So, there's a lot to dissect. So you tell me about this trade rumor that you have.
So it's a name that you floated a lot 2 years ago in your reporting before they traded for Rudy Gobert. So here's the and our friend Joe Nelson from Bring Me the News did a great job kind of pulling together a couple different reports.
Love Joe, yes.
Joe Nelson, we all go way back with Joe.
We do.
So here's the write-up. Some people, this is from the Bill Simmons podcast to start with. Bill Simmons said 3 days ago.
I've got my pen. Hold on. Okay, go.
Yep. Go ahead. Draw some arrows. Some people seem to think that both Trae Young and Dejounte Murray are going to get traded by the Hawks because the Hawks have the number 1 overall pick. It's not working with Trae Young and Dejounte Murray. They were like 10
both,
games under.
Though. Not one, both.
He's hearing this, that some people think both those guys could get traded. I'm hearing from different people who don't know each other, but who both know things that could be the case. So at the very least, they're open for business on one or the other. They could be open for business.
They're definitely open for
both.
business. Yes. I don't know about trading both, but one, logical.
So the Atlanta Hawks Fan Nation blog said, "Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, let's float some ideas for trading these guys." And so here's one of the trade iterations. The Hawks would get Karl-Anthony Towns and Marcus Smart from the Grizzlies. The Wolves would get 6'5" ball handling combo guard, point guard, shooting guard Dejounte Murray, who you brought up 2 years ago.
Yes, the Wolves. This front office had interest before they made the Gobert trade in Dejounte Murray. Yes.
Yeah. And the Wolves would get wing shooter Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's like a 38, 40% three-point shooter at high volume, by the way, like 6-7 attempts per game, just a gunner. And the Wolves, with this equation, would save about $7 million in salary cap space. Not actual cap space, but like luxury tax space. And then the Grizzlies, as the third team, would get Clint Capella and Sacramento's 2025 first-round pick. So essentially, you would have a lineup of Dejounte Murray as your starting point guard, 6'5", like one of the biggest ball-handling guards in the league. And then you would have Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid sliding into the lineup for Cat, presumably, with Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert. And off the bench, you'd have Mike Conley, 40% three-point shooter, Bogdanovic, 38, 40% three-point shooter, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, that's 8 in your rotation, then however else you would fill out the 9, 10, 11 spots.
All right. Are we sure this passes the sniff test, the CBA, like it's allowed test, right? Because the Wolves, because of their cap situation, Atlanta is a first apron team. Do we know, like if we run this through the trade machine, do we know if this 3-team trade, we know how difficult 3-team trades are to begin with, but do we know, Phil, if this 3-team trade can occur? Let's start there. Do we know that for sure?
I would assume that the
we'll go from
Fan
there.
Nation All Hawks website would diligently run all trades through the trade machine.
Because I would be curious on that front. I will tell you, I had a nice conversation with Bobby Marks, who knows all, former Nets assistant GM, ESPN analyst. That conversation is available, shameless plug, on the KSTP.com website, the sports page. Went back and forth with Bobby for about 30 minutes the other day. His conclusion is, not that it's impossible, but it's very, 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 very unlikely that the Wolves trade Karl-Anthony Towns. That it's just a very difficult trade to execute. So that's why I start with, I just don't know if this trade could even occur. Let's say it can. All right. If you're the Wolves, do you do it? I'm tempted to say yes, that I want another attacker. As you watch the playoffs now unfold beyond the conference finals, now, Dejounte, not an elite three-point shooter, but his best, or one of his best three-point shooting years was this past year. He's like 36.5%. Mm-hmm. Bogdanovich, you laid it out, right? He fits. So I think from the Wolves standpoint, you would do it. Now, hey, you're losing some, right? You're banking on Naz Reid being able to play that many more minutes. Can Naz make the impact on defense that Cat made this past year? So there's some give and take, but I get it from the Wolves standpoint. From the Atlanta standpoint, Cat plus Marcus Smart. Is Marcus healthy? Do you trade Trae Young? I don't know. I pause a little bit. So you're giving up Murray, Bogdanovich, and Capella to get Cat plus Marcus Smart. Now, where's that pick coming from? The Kings 2025 first. Who has ownership of that pick? Is that Atlanta?
It would be, let's see here. I think it's the
it's
Grizzlies
not the
get
Wolves.
it. Yeah, it's Atlanta because the Grizzlies.
Okay, so Atlanta's giving up
a
a 2025 first. The 2025 draft, by the way, is going to be good. Now, Sacramento, where are they at next year? 7, 8, 9, 10 seed? Let's say that's pick 15 or pick 14. That's a pretty good pick in a really good draft. Way better draft than this year. So if you're Atlanta, you're giving up Dejounte Murray, Bogdanovich, Clint Capella, plus about a top 15 pick next year for Cat plus Marcus Smart. If you're Landry Fields running the Atlanta Hawks front office, are you really doing that? That's where I pause.
So, by the way, I have I've run this through. There's a website called fanspo.com where you can actually run all of these through. So we'll send this 2025 to the Grizzlies. I'm about to click trade and see what happens.
All right, do it.
And they do include like the aprons and what you can and can't do. So what the Wolves as a second apron team before the league year starts, what the Wolves can't do is aggregate players to get a player.
Yes.
But they can trade a player for aggregated players. So they can trade Cat for multiple players, but they wouldn't be able to trade multiple players for a salary. By the way, this trade is a success from all three angles. And according to the CBA with the new luxury tax structure.
How dare you question the people at Hawks?
Fan Nation.
Hawks Fan Nation.
Yeah.
You know how long the Hawks have been around? How dare you question them?
But if you're the
What
Hawks,
are the restrictions for being a first apron team? Because Atlanta's a first apron team, right?
they are a first apron team, but this machine does take into account your first and second apron restrictions. And this trade goes through.
That's one hell of a formula.
So if you're the
developer.
Hawks, if you're the Hawks, you get Cat. So you'd have Cat and Trae Young would stay on the team, and then you get the number 1 overall pick. Marcus Smart comes in too and can do some.
Plus, you have Jalen
things.
Johnson, Sadiq Bey. You still have a relatively good core. Plus, I really like Quinn Snyder as a coach.
If you're the Grizzlies, you get to pair. Clint Capella comes in and can be another big. You got Ja Morant coming back. But if you're the Wolves, you don't really lose shooting because Bogdanovich comes in and can fill 6 or 7 3-point attempts per game at a high clip. You don't. So you don't. Really
He's really
lose.
good.
Yeah. And then Dejounte Murray gives you a big 6'5" ball handler that can initiate offense. Not quite to the level that Anthony Edwards can, but he's a guy 10 years younger than Mike Conley that comes in. He's under contract for 3 more years. So is Bogdanovich. And he can initiate offense. He has a lethal mid-range game. Decent three-point shooter, but he's a mid-range and I mean, he can get to the rack too.
You want another guy like that, right? That can attack, right? When we're talking about the Wolves being a middle-of-the-pack offensive team, right now, hey, you're losing Cat. But with Murray plus Bogdanovich, don't you instantly turn into a better offensive team? So you jump from being 17th or whatever it is in that ballpark. Aren't you instantly like a top 10 type offense? Maybe not top 5, but somewhere in that 9 to 12 range.
Yeah.
So you're better offensively. The question is, are you better defensively or are you comparable defensively? You're not going to be better defensively, but are you close defensively?
Can you still be like a top 5 or 6 defensive team, maybe not number 1, and your offense jumps into the top 10? Now you're a better overall team. I'm not just trading Cat to trade Cat, but if I can get better on offense, get another initiator of offense, and not lose a lot defensively, boy, this is an interesting one, Dukes. And take us back 2 years ago, Dejounte Murray.
This was before the Gobert trade. So
what level of interest?
Planting seeds. There was a heavy amount of interest. I'll put it that way. A lot of interest. You know, it wasn't Gobert or bust, right? I mean, they planted a bunch of seeds, right? They were looking for a star, right? And so they made multiple calls. There were multiple conversations with the San Antonio Spurs. So there was a good amount of interest in Dejounte Murray that summer before they executed the Rudy Gobert trade. I'm telling you, I'm in the camp right in the moment, right? You just hit it with me, but I think I do it if I'm the Wolves. I just don't know why I do it if I'm the Atlanta Hawks.
And what was the Murray talk back then? Was that with Conley having been hired, or was that Gupta?
Yeah, because Tim Connolly executed the Gobert trade. So
right.
it was
right.
Tim Connolly came in, May of 22. So those talks picked up, early June, like this time 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. There was a good amount of dialogue, the Wolves with the Spurs about Dejounte Murray.
Interesting. Just a little reckless speculation.
Reckless speculation.
Well, I mean, here's the question, Phil. If you run this thing back, right? Jordan McLaughlin gone, Kyle Anderson, mutual interest, right? We get that, but you can't have him back at $9 million, so he has to take a pay cut. So whether he's back or not, maybe Josh Minott, Leonard Miller can fill those minutes, but maybe Kyle comes back. I do think it's logical to think that Monte Morris ends up back here. Now, is that the veteran minimum, or do you need to go a little bit higher on Monte Morris? But I can see a scenario where Monte Morris is back. Certainly mutual interest on retaining Monte Morris. All right, so if you run this thing back, right? Nas is back, Cat, Gobert, Ant, Conley, Jaden McDaniels. Are you again a top 4 seed in the Western Conference? Are you a Final Four team? I mean, I get it. When you're a Final Four team with home court advantage, like I get it. If the Wolves just say, let's just run this thing back. Like we had home court advantage in the Western Conference Finals. We had the lead with 5 minutes to go in the first 4 games. Like that series was there for the taking. Now, there's a part of me that says if the Wolves had beat Dallas, it was inevitable that Boston was going to win the championship anyway, that the Wolves were not beating the Celtics in a best of 7. But if you want to make the case that the Wolves would have put up much more resistance than Dallas has, yes, I'm in that boat. I just think Boston would have beat the Wolves. And I get it. The Wolves beat the Celtics once in the regular season. Oh, by the way, Derek White missed that game. Okay, Derek White is a big-time difference maker. I don't think a lot of people realize how good Derek White is. He missed that game at Target Center, all right? But the Wolves beat the Celtics. Close game, competitive game at Target Center early in the year. Then the Wolves darn near won in Boston, second night of a back-to-back. And if I recall, they did not have their full roster. There was at least somebody missing, right? Boston had everybody that night.
That day.
That game went to overtime. That was one of the better Wolves performances in the regular season, even though it was a loss. But I still think over the course of a 7-game series, the Celtics would have beaten the Wolves. But I get it. If you're like, okay, we're that close, let's run this thing back. But I just don't know if you run this thing back if you're getting back to the Western Conference Finals. So that's why I would be open-minded to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's Anthony Edwards should get better.
Yes, he's 22.
Do you trust Karl to step up in the playoffs when you have now a 34-game sample size of his offense shrinking by like 5 points a game. And field goal
although his
percentage
knee,
and 3.
I'm telling you, Phil, he didn't want to admit it. The knee was bothering him. It really was. Game 5, Denver. From that point on, the knee was an issue. It just was.
Yeah, and that's fair. But okay, the knee heals up.
Mm-hmm.
Is he stepping into that number 2 role? Is he going to be getting more offense than he's been getting in some of these big playoff games? You have to make that decision. But
it's a fair question. Can he stay healthy? We've now seen injuries. We've now seen setbacks 2 consecutive years. Are you ready to say that Cat can stay healthy? That he can be durable for an entire season?
Big plotting 7-footer.
Entering year 10.
Hits the deck more than any big man in the NBA. I mean, is that stuff going to keep getting worse as he gets to be 29, 30 years old?
I'm just telling you, I get it from the Wolves standpoint. I don't get it from the Hawks standpoint. I really don't.
And Dukes, here's the most important question I think that Tim Connelly has to ask himself is what brings out the most in Ant? I think that's the most important question. Like, if you're going to deal Cat, are you going to improve the infrastructure around Ant? What is going to make a star who, by the way, thrives in the playoffs? So, like, this is not a shrinking player, but what's going to, in the postseason, make him even more productive? That's my question.
How would Murray and Ant coexist? That's really a question, right? That's what it boils down to. Is Murray a better fit with Ant compared to Cat? Now, when you ask that question, you can make a case. You like the idea of the big man that can spread the floor, right? Go to the corner, open up the lane for Anthony Edwards. We can have a fair conversation about Gobert's fit with Ant, right? Because that's not Gobert. Is Gobert for the next handful of years? Even though I just said there's mutual interest on an extension. If you're the Wolves, do you really want to extend Rudy Gobert? Is Gobert a great fit with Anthony Edwards? But you can make a case that Cat, you look at Cat's skill set, that's a pretty darn good fit on the surface with Anthony Edwards. Mm-hmm. Is Dejounte Murray as good a fit with Ant as Cat is?
And even personality-wise, we'd have to find out, do those guys, Cat and Ant love hanging out together, and they ride to the game together sometimes. Now, Ant gets annoyed by Cat's fouling and things, and you see that pop up, but the way he handles it, or is it possible that Anthony Edwards' personality is so welcoming and inviting and also alpha dog at the same time that anyone that comes in just sort of fits in seamlessly because it's Anthony Edwards' culture and everyone's welcome here?
Probably. Like, I wouldn't worry about that, but there is something to be said about that chemistry Cat with Ant. How, like, Ant can have some hard conversations with Cat. Conversations that, heck, Jimmy Butler had with Cat back in the day.
Yeah,
Cat didn't take those conversations real well. He takes these conversations with Ant really well. Now, that's also a credit to Cat for his emotional maturation over the last year plus, right? So it's a credit for the steps that Cat has taken. But I'm telling you, Ant has had some similar conversations with Cat that Jimmy did, right? Yeah. But Cat didn't receive it very well when it came from Jimmy.
Yep. Judd, maybe the Wolves need some Finch home solutions in their life. Huh?
Yep.
Not Chris Finch, but Cody Finch.
Cody Finch, exactly right. You know what? It might be a reckless speculation Thursday, but it's never reckless to choose Finch Home Solutions as the folks that can repair and or restore any electronics in your house, electrical needs. You know what? It's almost summertime, and that means remodeling time. Kitchens, bathrooms, right? We're talking about a ton of electrical things that need fixing there. Finch Home Solutions has you covered, or to something as small as an outlet. Let's say you're going to go from a 2-prong to a 3-prong. Finch can do that as well. No job is too big, no job is too small. And if you are a PD viewer and or listener, spend over $500, you're going to get $100 off. Remodeling projects, you need an electrician or anything else, just give them a call, 612-357-2604, or go to finchhomesolutions.com. You see the van right there. Look at all the stuff inside that's going to fix your home up. finchhomesolutions.com.
We do have breaking NFL news to get to here in just a second, but the Twins are home right now, and in fact, the next couple nights are going to be fun. Tonight is Prince night at Target Field on this Thursday. Twins.com/Prince if you'd like to get tickets. First 5,000 fans receive a Prince cap. Tomorrow night, it's the Flo Rida post-game concert. That's right. I think I'm going to roll down to the ballpark for that one. You can get your tickets to the Friday night Flo Rida and Twins experience at twins.com/Flo Rida or twins.com/Florida, said a different way. Royce Lewis probably hits some bombs this weekend, so you can have some fun at the ballpark. And Father's Day. Also, Father's Day at the ballpark. First 5,000 fans receive a Father's Day polo or matching kids t-shirt. Twins.com/tickets. Okay, here's the news, the breaking news.
Vikings fans won't be happy.
No. Well, this is ridiculous, quite frankly.
And
I'm just going to read this from Schefter.
Well, I think the Vikings think it's ridiculous.
It's insane. So the NFL has ruled that the Falcons had improper contact with prospective unrestricted free agents Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney, and Charlie Warner during their 2-day negotiating period prior to the start of the 2024 league year. Atlanta, as a result of these heinous crimes, which, by the way, like, okay, we want to sign a $40+ million quarterback. We want to steal him from another team who has exclusive negotiating rights. And the penalty for interfering that way is Atlanta forfeits its 5th-round pick in the 2025 draft, and the organization, worth billions, will pay a fine of $250,000, and the general manager, Terry Fontenot, who makes millions, will be fined $50,000. So if you want to go out, jump the gun, and have improper contact with a free agent that you're going to pay $20, $30, $40+ million to, you can do so, and all you'll have to do is pay a couple of bucks and a 5th-round pick. They just invited teams to tamper even more than they already are with this weak punishment. And by the way, the Vikings get nothing out of this. That's the other part of the headline. Vikings.
Yes, although,
don't get
like, I don't know if anybody really thought the Vikings would benefit from all this. Now, the Vikings laid out all the evidence. The Vikings made it very clear to the NFL, hey, Atlanta did tamper. I mean, heck, there were even flights booked, right? I don't know with all 3 of those guys, but there was a lot of stuff going on when, yes, correct, the Vikings were supposed to have this exclusive negotiating window. But, like, to me, it was always Atlanta to be punished. Now, I thought it would be more than a 5th-round pick, so that surprised me. So you're right, Phil. It invites the league, okay? Because we also found out today the Giants are not happy. The Giants feel like the Eagles tampered on Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
The NFL came to a conclusion, announced this morning that guess what? The Eagles are not being punished at all. So they don't even need to pay a $50,000 fine or lose a 5th or whatever round pick next year. So Atlanta at least gets punished. Philadelphia doesn't get punished. But I can tell you, the Vikings felt like they laid out a pretty compelling case. They had enough evidence. I don't know this like in the moment. I'll check later, but my sense is the Vikings are probably scratching their heads a little bit on this one.
So the Vikings didn't, and it's 3. So it's 3 different guys. So like, there is no precedent that I could find unless the teams come to an agreement, Dukes, that there would be compensation going back. But yes, the 5th-round pick seems really
correct. And I don't think the Vikings ever thought they were going to be compensated.
Right.
I just think they thought Atlanta would be punished a little bit more severely.
But for 3 players, this is the incredible thing. It's 3 guys that they determined it's a 5th-round pick. I mean, shouldn't it be a 1st or a 2nd-round pick or something like that? Here's what the league needs to do to allow this, because here's their problem. They're saying, well, you can technically talk to the agents, right? It's the legal tampering period, which they don't use, but you can't talk to the player. I think what they should do is I think they should create categories of free agents. And so like Cousins would be in the top tier, right? I think a team like the Vikings should be able to waive its exclusive window and make a trade with the Falcons. This is done in hockey for like a late round
NHL, right? Yeah.
For like a late round draft pick. Okay, here's a 6th-round pick. We can talk to Kirk now. Mm-hmm. And then you get something back. Because like if it's some slappy, who cares, right?
I like it. Or get rid of the exclusive negotiating window. Just start free agency on a day. Forget this 48-hour rule.
Sure.
Just start free agency on, March 11th. Forget this 2-day, okay, then you can start negotiating and signing contracts on March 13th or agree to terms. Just start everything on one singular day.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that there could be a compensatory factor here. We want to talk to Kirk. Okay, that's cool. Give us a 6th-round pick. I think they'd probably do it.
Okay, but like even beyond
I'd be
that,
okay with the NHL model. Yeah.
the Vikings have so correct me if I'm wrong here. Once the 48-hour period starts, the Falcons can talk to Kirk's agent about they can't make an official they can't sign a contract, but they can't talk to Kirk in that window, right?
Correct.
But the Vikings can,
Correct.
because he is still a Viking up until the 48-hour window is over. So, and again, on this show and Purple Daily, we are fine with the direction they chose. But I'm just speaking in terms of like NFL.
I think
legality.
the Vikings are fine with the direction they chose.
But
they just feel like, hey, like we play by the rules. Why can't the Falcons play by the rules?
So the Vikings have an exclusive negotiating and communication window with Kirk Cousins that the Falcons breached by speaking to Kirk Cousins. Shouldn't the Vikings get something in return for the Falcons interfering in their ability to work out a contract? Like this, like I said, this incentivizes.
Is there a precedent
teams.
for that? Is there any evidence over the last? Because this isn't the first time a team has been found guilty of tampering.
Not that I could find.
Going back many years, do we have an example of a team?
Even if there's not, I'm saying,
want to say got screwed, then
Doogie,
benefited with draft pick competition.
If I'm an NFL team, I am starting next year. I'm telling my front office, guys, we'll eat the fine. Start reaching out to those free agents illegally 2 or 3 days beforehand.
Because you're already doing that at the combine, though.
But do it when it's time to offer a contract. Do it now.
Well, I think there's some numbers being talked about well before the 48-hour window, right? I mean, you know this, Judd. I mean, there's some numbers being bandied about at the combine. 4 weeks prior.
The Falcons don't get pinched here if
3 weeks, whatever.
If Kirk doesn't flap his gums at the press conference. like Kirk set this. Like I think the Vikings
with our trainers.
I think the Vikings would have protested, and I think that the league. Here's the league's problem. At the end of the day, this stuff's going on constantly, right? So I think they're loath to say, well, it's going to be a second round pick because God, where do you stop then? That's my opinion. But if Kirk doesn't get up to the podium and flap his gums, because he talked about talking to Mooney, right? He talked about, I was in contact with him.
I think that's it.
Basically, as an extension of the Falcons. This is a Kirk Cousins bleep up. No question, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, let's be realistic, right? So, that Wednesday, the Vikings agree to terms with Jonathan Grenard, right? Like an hour in free agency? Was it about that, give or take? 2 hours? You mean to tell me that's the first time the Vikings and Drew Rosenhaus had a conversation about Grenard?
Well, but Rosenhaus is fine. I'm saying the Falcons and Kirk Cousins were like with Kirk, they were in communication.
Well, it's what Judd said. It's when Kirk is at the podium at his introductory news conference citing Darnell and I are having these conversations, right? It was Kirk. Yeah. All you had to do was watch Kirk's news conference, and the NFL had enough evidence right then and there. Forget everything the Vikings provided to the NFL, right? Forget all that. Just watch the news conference.
I saw the trainer. I saw the training staff. Well, we met off site. That's my favorite. Okay, whatever.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Things are going great in the first 3 months of the Kirk Cousins Atlanta Falcons era here. Everything's fine. Doogie, empty that scoop bag for us. What else do you have left in there before we part ways on this Reckless Speculation Thursday?
Twins pitching prospect Matt Canarino. I still feel like if he can get and stay healthy, he can actually help this bullpen in August or September. The stuff can play at the major league level. Yeah. Well, it's been a long process, another long process, shoulder issue going back to March. He's finally throwing bullpens. We're still a little ways away from game action, but Matt Canarino, once again, is making progress, although he was making progress going back to mid-April. Right now we're talking 2 months later. So it's been a process, let's put it that way. But in this moment, Canarino doing well. Good work by Declan last night. Alex Kirilloff going down. The Twins haven't officially announced this, but Kirilloff going down. Austin Martin coming up. Matt Wallner, I don't think he thought he was coming up, right? But you could have made a case, okay, lefty bat down, bring up a lefty bat. Matt's been a little bit better the last couple weeks. I just wonder, let's call this reckless speculation on this Thursday. Matt Wallner is a great trade chip. The Twins have received calls going back the last couple years. At this point, it looks like Larnach has passed him by. You don't call up Wallner now. To me, you trade Matt Wallner in July. Something to keep an eye on. I would put it that way. Plus, I will add My sense is he'd be open-minded to a change of scenery.
Yeah. Okay. I could see him just going and being, like a left-handed Josh Willingham somewhere for a few years, 25, 27 homers, some strikeouts, maybe some adventures in the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that rocket of an arm. Yeah, maybe some adventures in terms of, getting the balls. But, in terms of just, throwing a guy out at the plate, there's not many better arms in the game. He's got a rocket of an arm. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, just something to keep an eye on. Matt Wallner as a trade chip come July. Kirilloff, healthy. My understanding is this is not health-related. The numbers were decent in April, maybe even better than decent. Declan, you can certainly chime in on that. Since then, nothing. He underwent a swing change. Now, this was recommended by Twins coaches mid-July last year. Now, I get it from the Twins standpoint. It was more about using his hips, less about his wrists. You think about Alex's wrist history, right? So the Twins were trying to tweak his swing. Well, outside of a mini run in April and, maybe a little bit of a run at different points last year, really his numbers since mid-July of last year until now are very pedestrian. And so there are some people close to Alex just wondering, okay, all right, we understand from the Twins standpoint, but it's time for Alex to go back to his old swing. You think about Austin Martin. The Twins tried to change his swing along the way. It threw him for a loop, right? Maybe he can't hit for power. That's okay. Be a utility guy. Play multiple positions. Be an on-base guy. Steal some bases. Maybe that is Austin Martin, that he's not going to hit the ball over the fence. But, hey, the Twins also, had something to do with Ryan Jeffers tweaking his swing before last year. That's a success story, right? So It goes both ways. But I do sense there's some frustration from some people close to Alex going back to last July.
Interesting. Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department.
One more. Gopher basketball summer workouts began on Monday. Hear a lot of good things about Dawson Garcia. I mean, he was all Big Ten last year. So now that he's back, I mean, heck, think about it. Marquette into North Carolina, into Minnesota. Dawson has played, former McDonald's All-American. He has played a lot of college basketball. Now, it might depend on how good the Gophers are, but Dawson Garcia, to me, should be very much in the mix to be Big Ten Player of the Year. But anyway, I am told he looks really, really good in the gym this week. Also transfer Frank Mitchell, the big man who came in, one of the many transfers, one of the many newcomers for the Gophers. He is looking good as well.
Awesome. There he is, folks. D. Wolfson, KSTP on Twitter/X. We'll see you next Tuesday, Dukes. Enjoy your weekend.
Okay, take it easy, boys. See ya. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. There's your Reckless Speculation Thursday here, Minnesota Sports with Mackie and Judd.